We are very excited and grateful to have Donna Jamila Finney with us today. Donna Jamila took the Sufi Promise and Shahada with Sufi master Sidi Mohammed al Jamal in 1998. She's been a continuous student of Sufism and the University of Spiritual Healing in Sufism since 1999, and her hope and expectation is for that to continue. Her teaching today is, will I ever get it? It doesn't matter. Jamila, welcome and thank you for being with us today.
Oh, thank you. This is so wonderful. It's like my brothers and sisters are here with me, and it's so comforting. So thank each of you. Today, inshallah, I'll do some sharing, and then we'll have time for some interactive discussion and sharing. So that's my wish. So let's see how that unfolds. So, you know, I've been on this journey for 20 years, and what I'm sharing with you today is my latest ahas. You know how they're always changing, right? The ahas are ever evolving. And so this is it. As of today, just show up, period. That's it. That we can stop trying to get it. Now we're going to explore what get it means. And if you want to know more about me, I love telling stories about my journey on this path these 20 years, and I'll talk about that on and on. So just call me or email me. We'll set a time, and do I have stories to share with you? I'll share just a few of them today. So what I'd like for us to start with is, of course, the Fatiha. And so I invite each of you to settle into wherever you are right now, and to take a nice deep breath. And if you wish, touch your heart and maybe bow your head just a bit, surrendering your beautiful mind to your heart and your soul. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladhina an'amta alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim. Waladdallin. Ameen. Beloved Allah, please help me to be an open vessel through which your light and love and healing move through. And I ask that you help all of us to really receive all that you have for us today, completely into our hearts and our souls and our nafs. And please help us walk in this world just radiating your love, your light, your healing, so that others who are so hungry to receive might receive your essence and your presence. Thank you, beloved Allah. So I'd like to start by asking us to ponder this question and just look into your own heart. What is it that I'm wondering if I will ever get? And just ask yourself this. And if this doesn't apply to you, if it's like, hey, I know I don't need to get anything, I'm cool, everything's good, then you might use your imagination. If I were to kind of explore something else that I need to get on this path, what might that be? Now, of course, when we look at examples of what does getting it mean? What is it that I'm supposed to get? Examples, the 5 pillars. Okay, praying 5 times a day. We could say a lot about that, right? Understanding Sidi's books, or maybe reading his books and writing his books, or am I ever going to get it, how I'm supposed to dress? Or, just in case this one applies to any of you like it does me, this is the big one. When am I going to get it? How to see only Allah in everyone. So, there are some areas of getting it that we could explore. And in my current state, for me, getting it, there's not even really anything to get right now. It's deepening my belief and my feeling that God loves me. Period. That is all that's needed right now. And from that place of a deep knowing that God loves me, then I can open to receive all that God wishes to bring me. It's very interesting how this opening to a deeper being loved by God continues. After 20 years, I'm still having huge breakthroughs with that. As recently as, yesterday, but the big one, my last big one was the last 10 days of Ramadan, a huge healing there. So, to be clear, and many of you have known me for years, and you can chuckle when I say, all these years I thought it was doing the right things so that I would get it. And now it's just being with Allah. So we might say spiritual duh, right? Okay, that's all good. And what about this? How does this land with you? This path is all about receive, receive, receive. Allah wants to give us more than we would ever give ourselves. So I remember very clearly 1998, sitting in Sukaina Joyan's living room. I was so new to Sufism. And she said, it's all about receive, receive, receive. And I thought she was crazy. I probably told her I thought she was crazy, and up until very recently, maybe even today, I still have some remnants of I'm supposed to do things right. If I do things right enough, then what I'm looking for will happen. But that's not it at all. So here we are. There's nothing to get. Just be with Allah and receive. Now, for me, and this is kind of the soapbox I get on, the bottom line of being with Allah and receiving and deepening that connection is practices and community. So now I would be very curious what's going on in your heart, your mind, and your soul with practices and community. So let's talk about that a bit. Let's start with community. And my two favorite stories of community for me, most of you have heard one or both of them, but of course there was when my beloved Saudry Pat, and this has been 6.5 years ago, he found out he had brain tumors on November 10th of 2011, and he passed from this world on January 5th of 2012. And community, it was easy for me to receive because it was him that was receiving, so I was a bit more open and not as resistant. But whether it was prayer support or financial support or all kinds of support, he had his high school class still meeting regularly, he had his TM community, and of course he had our Sufi community all over the country. And I don't even have words to express how much it meant to me to be able to walk that journey with him with ease and yakin and certainty because of the support. And, neither one of us were working during those weeks, and there was so much financial support that we had no worry about bills, and it helped me move to Seattle after his passing. And so now anytime something comes through, I know a GoFundMe for this or that, I understand how much difference $20 makes, and so, it helps me stay very present to the power of community. The other sense of community that is so dear to my heart was my grandson, who will be 11 in August, was born during Sufi school in Austin. And Amy called me. She was in labor when I was at Sufi school. And so I was able to say to Sidi, please pray for her. I remember waiting for him to come in to do his talk. And so the entire community was praying. And, Amy was 2 weeks late, and he didn't breathe the first 4 minutes of his life. And the midwives told me there was no problem. But do you know what I believe? I believe that God said, this baby has some complications here. Let's have him be born during Sufi school and have all that support. So those are two huge examples of community. And we can talk a bit more about that later. Community is a very broad term, and our personal experience of what community is needs to resonate in our own hearts. And of course, for me, community is from being with others, doesn't have to be Sufis, that I can have a sense of my heart and soul are filled with love, and it's going to be okay. And I can stay aligned with Allah, the truth, the love. So that's, for me, is what community is. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Okay, so now let's bring up the word practices. Wow. What voices do you notice with that word? Now, my definition of a practice is whatever brings joy to your heart, whatever helps your heart fill with love and with joy, and with a presence of Allah, Sidi, Sufism, whatever fills your heart. So practices can be anything. We tend to say, oh, gee, I'm not doing this enough or that enough. And we could go on and on. My main practices these days, walking with my dog, Junie. or going to the park with Junie and with my grandson, Cannon. And for me, writing Sidi's books, it doesn't matter what the words are. I don't worry about understanding the words. I mean, you know, every time you pick up his book and read something, you get something new out of it. So it's not what it means or what he's trying to say. That changes for all of us. It's just in writing his words, I feel his presence. And for me, it's Arabic. Listening to the Quran, listening to Sidi, it's the sacred healing of the vibration of the Arabic language. So once again, for me, the important thing is to have your toolbox of practices that you rely on, so that when times get really tough, then they'll be there in your tool belt, and even if you're not actively engaging in them, like right now we're in the middle of a big move, and I haven't done Arabic in a week or two. And when I reflect on that in my heart, it still fills my heart to overflowing, even though I'm not in the practice of it right now, because I'm so eager about getting back. You know, a little story about Arabic. 9 years ago, Sukaina Joyan once again taught Arabic in Austin, Texas, and I knew this was my chance. Need to learn it from someone who speaks English, not a native Arabic speaker. And so I took her beginner class over and over again, and finally the third time I could go to intermediate. And I knew if I didn't keep the practice going, I would lose it. And so now Rockman Nancy there in Austin and I, most days, spend a little bit of time with Arabic every morning. And even if we don't, like we've both been traveling and doing things the last week or two, we joyously look forward to it. We don't hold a lot of guilt stuff about having not do it. It's a anticipation of that we're excited about. So my question to you is, where are each of you in your practices? You know what keeps coming up for me is ice cream. If I go to the ice cream shop with Cannon and we have ice cream and it fills my heart with joy to be with him, then that's a practice. But if I stop at the service station to grab my ice cream bar because I'm whatever stressed out, then that's not a practice. So see, it depends on how it affects our hearts. So I'm doing my admission there about me and ice cream. We're entirely too close, but I'm working on that. Okay, another little story or two, and then we're going to hopefully have some discussion about all of this. So since July 1st, and this is going to be an example of mirrors as I tell this story. Since July 1st, we've been in the process of moving from one house to another and downsizing considerably, maybe 30%, maybe 40%. Right now, I'm in one of the upstairs rooms in the house we're moving out of. That's why it may sound very echoey, but in the background are the trees that we were used to looking out of this room. It was like we were living in a tree house. So since July 1st, and today's the 8th, so it's been at least a week. So my so-called practices really haven't been, except for walking, I haven't been practicing so many of my practices. However, they're still in my heart and soul, because they're not gone. They're just on sabbatical, you might say. What I am doing in the midst of this downsizing and packing and moving is taking time to be with the Sufi community here. You know, and we have several groups. They're pretty much small, but several times that we meet. We have 2 different zikrs that they meet about once a month we drive 2 hours just to get there, and then we do zikr for an hour and a half, and then we do a potluck, and then we drive 2 hours back. And it feeds our heart deep enough that it's all zikr. You know, it's not, oh, gee, I don't want to drive 2 hours. We look forward to being together with that. Let's see, what else do I want to say about that? Oh, okay. One thing I'll say about CD's books, as I packed to move them, in downsizing, I got rid of lots of other books. I remembered how writing his words feeds my heart. And in my new room, it's where do I want to put CD's books so they're right in front of my face, so that as soon as I open my eyes in the morning, there they are, and all the transmission that they give me. And also for practices, I have already said this, I've been walking with Junie every day, and that really feeds my heart. So, okay, so if we say, okay, that's fine and good, I'll deepen my practices and I'll go hang out with Sufi brothers and sisters, that's fine. You know what the most helpful for me, and I believe for all of us, is intention. And that is to get clear about what we receive from the practices, what we receive from being in community. And once we get really clear about that and it fills our heart, then I believe then we can do step number 2, which is commit to taking one small step. And we have a lot of opportunities for community here. It might not fit our ideal, like going to hang out with people a couple times a week, and it only takes 5 minutes to get there, and there are 20 people are there, and everybody has great things to share. You know, it could be a phone call that we're willing to get on, or it could be meeting just with 2 or 3 people. So number 1 is intention, and number 2 is committing to one small step. So I believe what I want to say is this is where I am in my walking right now. And isn't it interesting? Here we are downsizing, I don't know, 25, 30%. And for me, where I live represents the state of my soul. And so isn't it interesting that I'm letting go of that which doesn't serve me and keeping only the deepest treasures? And I'm so curious to see what God makes with all of this. So once again, mirrors show up everywhere. And so what I would love to do, let's see, what would I love to do? Asking Allah is, because there are plenty of people on the call who may have some sharing. I would love for us to go inside a bit, to check in with your heart, and whether you do that by breathing into your heart or touching your heart with your fingertips or asking Allah. And from a heart place, is there a question you would like to bring up for the group? Or is there a key gem or jewel that works for you around community or practices that you would like to share with the group? Because we have such an opportunity with what CD has brought us to expand into and take this to another level, whatever this is. And so I would love for us to be in that frame of mind, and intention is how to carry forward what we've been given, and the discussion to be around practices or community. So whether you share, yeah, this works for me and I want to tell you about it, or whether you share, oh, gee, this is the hardest thing for me, I would love to open it up for questions. So how does that feel, Abdullah?
That's wonderful. So if you'd like to ask a question, unmute your microphone, or if you're on a cell phone, hit *6 and speak.
And I'm really patient with just waiting until Allah brings through what Allah wants. So we're just going to hang out here as long as we need to hang out here.
Are you there?
We are here.
Straight it out. Well, so I don't know if this is a question, but it comes up for me because I guess because of my life experience. You know, the whole piece about Sufism and mysticism related to those deep, deep innermost parts of us that resonate with this higher power, these strong beliefs in our God. There are these practices that we learn related to that. And when I first came into the Sufi world and kind of learned, you know, whoa, oh, this is about compassion and love. And I had this kind of big idea that it must be about spreading that and doing community service. And so there's this big, broader picture. And so, you know, my old kind of community organizing ideas there as opposed to this inner direction. And so when you talk about community, I'm interested in those pieces of connecting the innermost with strategizing of this larger idea of community. There's our community, and then there's the big Sufi community, but then there's the world. And so that's where I kind of went in the beginning. And so I found it very confusing about, oh, well, if this means getting the mess, you know, kind of carrying this into the bigger world, it seemed confusing because it didn't seem
okay. Thank you, dear. Thank you, dear. Thank you for bringing this up. Community in this country is is what a loaded question, I guess you might say. From my perspective, and this is just how I hold it, community is my community to fill my heart to overflowing as much as possible. And for me personally, then being in service is different from community. Being in service may, of course, include community, but being in service might be, like in my case, I have the honor of living with my daughter and grandson, and for this summer, being in service is being as present to him as I can, because usually during the year, he's gone from 8 to 3, 5 days a week, and that's where I do my thing. But summer, it's me and him. So for me this summer, service is being present with him. Now, a very subtle form of service, and Ibrahim Jaffe shared this a couple of times. Early on in the path, he said, watch when you go into the bank or to get coffee, like if you're in this good heart space, how when you walk in, it's only you and one other person, but when you turn around to leave, there are 10 people behind you, that in a very subtle way, people are so hungry to feel the love that it's an unconscious thing, but they are attracted to what we are being taught, how to hold in our hearts. So in a very subtle way, service can be that. And then service can be as the master's courses at Sufi U are all about how to take this message out into the world in a very specific way. So I think it's important for us to, number one, get clear our own clear definition about what community is and being willing to expand and deepen that, and also to be clear about what service is, and to be willing to expand that also. I can personally get into the, oh gee, I'm not doing enough. I'm not out there, doing big changes in the world. Well, maybe you're not called to do big changes in the world. So is that helpful?
Sure.
Okay, good. Okay, and you might ponder that and also ask others their feeling about service and community.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Jamila, this is Zuleika. I love what you're talking about, like your practices. I always from the beginning, I struggle with like the prescribed stuff, and part of it is just having developed over the years the habits. But I sometimes think maybe I'm being a little bit I don't know, like if I'm being holy enough with the things that fill me up. But one of the things for the last 5 years that I've done that I absolutely adore, and I hope I'm not shocking anybody by saying this, but I love when I'm in my car, I turn on El Weird. I have like a CD with El Weird, and I just like crank it. And I just like do it at the top of my lungs while I'm driving. I hardly ever even listen to anything else anymore because it's just like, wah! But this is the first time I've shared that with anyone because of what you said. It made me feel like, oh, it is okay that I do that.
Oh my goodness, yes, dear. This is great. So, I'll wear it in your car. Great. And I'm so glad you brought this up. The most important qualities for me: mercy, compassion, and patience. Rahman, Rahim, and Sabur. And of course, Shakur. I mean, appreciation is nice. And I love what you said, am I holy enough? So we have this great coffee shop, and it's called Fuel. And the baristas are our therapists. And it's really good, cheap therapy. And so, you know, I went to the last days of Ramadan, right? And so as soon as I got back, I went in fuel and said, okay, I went off to Sufi land. Am I holier? And what? I mean, really? Come on. Aren't we all holy enough? I mean, really? So my wish is that we could embrace enoughness. We are enoughness, and God wants to give us more. And practice Rahman, Rahim, Shakur, Sabur. With this accent in Arabic, you got to be kidding me. God gets a chuckle every time I do any Fatiha or anything. I mean, God loves us in our humanity. God loves watching us do this thing of Sufism. And of course, it's not just Sufism, it's whatever spiritual tradition you want to go deep enough into to experience. Well, for me, it's God and everything. So there. Okay, thank you. So who else?
So, hello, Jamila, this is Latifa, and I've never really spoken up in one of these situations, but I'll just say in terms of my practices in the last, year or so, I've gone through some major problems and including some physical things and then some people dying and various things, retiring. And in a way, I feel like, I was like a chicken crossing the road and I got run over and I just got kind of like flattened and different parts of me went in different directions. So I feel like in a way I have lost my sort of coherence of practices. But at the same time, I have sort of an interesting feeling of being lighter energetically. And what I realize, I do have to get onto a more regular practice kind of thing like I used to do. But what I have found is actually the only thing that helps me when I'm feeling really torn apart, just really, really under all these stresses is the remembrance or prayers, remembrance, qualities. It's literally the only thing in my life that helps me. And so I might, after I do it for a while, I might come out of it and the issues certainly are not completely gone, but my life is doable then. And I can feel like I'm just horrible. And I think, well, this is the time then, I really need to do that practice. So it's usually for me, it's all the remembrance or some prayers or qualities, various qualities.
Thank you. I'm so glad you brought this up because we each have those experiences of being flattened, like crossing the road and we're just flat run over. And so once again, mercy and compassion. And for me, it's intention. Okay, I'm going to pick up, as you said, what works. Pick up what works and just let yourself be with what works and being open then to God bringing the expansion. It's not necessarily something you do, but let God bring the expansion of the practices. Who knows, they may all be different and new from your formal practice life. And also to be open to what would community look like, even if it's one other person that I'm willing to share with, if it's one other person I'm asking just to hold a heart space while I share, because community is of vital importance and we tend to isolate. So my appreciation is of your sharing and that, helping us all to have mercy and compassion with those really tough happenings in life. and that we can pick up where we are, deepen what we know works, and then expand from there. Is that helpful?
Thank you very much. That's very helpful.
You know,
Assalamu
we've been
alaikum,
doing
Jamila.
this. Yes, who is this?
This is Nura Laird. Assalamu
Oh, hi,
alaikum.
honey.
Hi, honey. I love the tone that you're setting and the gifts that you're giving people through your understanding of the teachings and through your own life experience. I wanted to say that first. And I also wanted to say that as far as the practices go, there's this voice inside me that thinks that when I do my practices, I should feel really amazing and woo-woo. And most of the time I don't. And even though I don't, Sidi says all over the place in Secret of the Love of God that we do what we do, including Salat and our practices and our service. We do it, we want to aim to do it out of love of God. And so whenever I'm doing all weird and I'm bored with it, but I do it, every day, often twice a day, but I still do it because I want to. Even though it doesn't give me woo-woo most of the time, I do it because underneath I ask myself, are you doing this because you love Allah? And I am. And so I just wanted to add that as a thought, that we're not just doing it to get something out of it, but we're doing it out of love. I just wanted to add that. That really helps me.
You know what I love, and this is what I love about community, because what Nura shared is helping me see there was still a bit of a, am I going to get it? And so isn't that interesting that once again I see another little layer of letting go, am I going to get it? And the other thing that I love is The Secret of the Love of God is the first CD book that's been brought up in this discussion. And I'm curious if that's some kind of a, we might want to pick up that little book and write it or read it. So those of you that have it, including me, I'm going to make a note right now to pick up that book. Thank you, dear. This is what community is about. It's helping us get the big picture, getting the full spectrum. And so I love that. Oh, we've still got plenty of time. Who else?
Assalamu alaikum, Jamila. It's Salam, Linda.
Alaikum assalam.
Just a couple of things. I like to do I try to go out for a half an hour walk every day. It's, good for my body and my soul. And so I like to do my Al Weird while I'm out walking. And, so there's that. And then I think one of the great things for me just about the community is I feel loved and cared about, and that I can share whatever is going on with me without any fear of being judged. And that has been a huge gift for me from the community, because for so long I kept so much inside because I was sure that, people would walk away from me if they heard this, that, or the other. But when you have a safe place to share, you also find that you're not alone with a lot of these things.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And a couple of you have talked about different ways of doing some of our standard practices. Doing the weird while you're walking, doing remembrance or whatever you want in your car. Wonderful. And so be expansive and creative about your practices. walking through Trader Joe's doing A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajim is very helpful for me at times. So we can get very creative, very, not just Trader Joe's, by the way, but, you know, out there in the dunya, you know. It helps me not, it helps all that dunya stuff kind of stay at bay if I do A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajim. And community, I believe that the bottom line, it's a place, whether it's one or more, where we can feel love and feel cared for, and where we can share, you know, and not feel judged. So thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And we may need to get creative about that. You know, we tend to say, oh, gee, there's no place. And, you know, I wonder if that's true. Community, especially for us in this country, isn't something that comes natural. So we have to be, I think, innovative and creative. Thank you. Who else?
Jamila, it's Nura again. I'm thinking about you and the different kinds of service that you do that I think are so integrated that you're not mentioning them.
Mm.
But when people call you for help with a conflict, you're in service to them.
Mm.
And because you have those skills, you know, from peacemaking, Allah sends you those people. And I feel like that's a form of service that you do, and I do, and many of us probably do, that is really important in the world. And whether it's for pay or not, I know I do both a lot. Because of being in community often, and because of just being a human being, because many of the people that call us are not Sufis, and you and I know that about the work we do. And so I just wanted to mention that there's so many other ways of being in service when people are just calling you for help with anything in their life. And you're doing your best to bring the teachings to them in a way that works for them, you know, no matter who they are. And when I say you, I mean all of us.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Nura. And I'm glad you brought that up, because it does remind me that I do 2 or 3 different kinds of groups. One of them is called Women in Transition, and it's homeschool moms whose kids are leaving the nest. And another one is a monthly group where people just gather to be together and share. And the bottom line is to active listening. But what we do with this is we go inside the first 15 minutes, maybe 20. And of course, people are so hungry for that they absolutely love it. And then it helps people drop into that heart place. They share them from a heart place, and then a theme arises. And then from that theme, what we do is there are qualities that come up. And then what we do is go inside and then just kind of preview the upcoming week or weeks, and how might we apply what we just had an aha about. And so with this Women in Transition group, because so many of their families are together during the summer, just like with me and Canon, went inside, the general theme was, what we want to do is be present this summer and not distracted. And how might and could that happen? And a couple of these groups have been meeting for years, and it's so important, and it feeds their hearts and souls so deeply for us to be together, be quiet, and then listen, and then share. And so, of course, that's Peacemaking 101. So with anybody in our world, you know, in service, if we can just listen deeply enough, people will come to their own conclusions. So thank you, Nura. Thank you. So I feel like what I would like to do, what's coming to me, is for us to go inside a couple of minutes. I don't know if I'll ask for you to share or not. We'll see. Go inside a couple of minutes and ask for guidance for your next small step. Whether it's practices or community. So I invite you to take a nice deep breath. And to bow your head if that helps you go deeper. Ask Allah and be open to receive a next step around either community or practices. Remember to breathe. It's very helpful. And as you are open and receptive to guidance, be willing to be surprised. You might open your shoulders a bit and just be open to whatever God brings. And I'm going to ask you to have an intention to follow through with whatever it is that came to you. And if you need support in following through, then tell someone else what your intention is so that both of you can hold your heart in your intention. And then what I'm guided to do as a closing is just for each of us to hold the intention of what God is asking for us, of us, in our unfolding, what's happening with our community, our teraka, and for us to be in a place of expansion and deepening and a new creation of what Allah is making in each of our lives personally and also in our communities and, you know, all over the country and all over the world. And also for us to hold a positive intention and hold hope and positive energy for where our world and our planet is moving so that we might hold that pole of hope. Allah. So I don't have anything else. Abdullah?
Thank you, Jamila, for a beautiful teaching today. Thank you for everything that you've given to us as individuals, to us as a community, as a tariqa for many, many years. We deeply appreciate it. So it's been a lot of fun being with you today. And as